Welcome to this new video, and today I am going to teach you the malware technique called threat hijacking. This technique is a very typical technique that is basically based on this. In the first step, the first thing you do is open the process with the open process function. This function is a function that opens the process and returns a handle to manage this process, to use this process for other things. With this handle, we can create a new memory space within the remote process with the virtual alloc function, which basically creates a new memory space where you can then put whatever you want. In this case, we will copy the payload, which is this here. With the write process memory function, we copy the malicious payload into the new memory space created in the remote process. Once we have this, what we do is suspend a thread. We suspend a thread from the victim process with the suspend thread function, and with this what we can do, once it is suspended, is use the get thread context function to obtain the thread context. Once we have the thread context, we can modify the thread's RIP address, which is the next address the process will go to. That is, when we put here, we will put the new memory created, the new memory space created with virtual alloc, in the RIP address. What it will do is execute the payload that we have copied into the new memory space. By modifying this RIP address, what we do next, as said, is to put the new context with the modified RIP modificado to the same thread as before. And finally we use resume thread to make it run again. And what will the process do? Well, when it receives the resume thread, it will go to the following RIP address, which is the one we have put in our memory space with the malicious payload, and this malicious payload will be executed. It is a widely used technique because you save yourself from using functions like create remote thread, which are closely monitored by antivirus and EDRs, and this allows you to avoid these types of functions in work. First of all, here we see how it works. The first thing we do in this code, is take the process identifier, in this case Firefox, which will be the victim process. Then we look for a thread. We look for a thread of this process, perfect to do the hijack and to execute inside, right? We look for the thread, and then we take the thread and the context of the thread with the get thread context function. Notice that we are already going through this step. We have already done half of it, and once we have the context of this thread, we only need to suspend the thread, and then we suspend the thread. We do it here. Here we suspend the thread, and once we have the thread suspended, it is very easy because we only need to modificar. So we just need to create the new memory space, write the malicious payload, which in this case is this one here. What this payload does is run a very basic calculator, a calculator like the one in Windows. This one, for example, is a calculator, and finally, what we do is, we put the RIP address to our memory space, which is basically the new memory space that we have created with virtual alloc, and finally, we set the new context to the thread, and when we use the resume thread function, it will be executed automatically within the Firefox process, which seems to have been executed by Firefox. It will be the parent process, it will be Firefox, we execute it, and our calculator will be executed. If you pay attention, we go here, we run it, and the calculator runs automatically. And this is the thread hijacking technique. I hope you liked it and see you in the next video.